You learned very early that your feelings made things harder for everyone else, so you stopped having them out loud. And somewhere along the way, you became the child who didn't need to be asked twice, who stayed quiet during hard times, who understood things you were never supposed to understand. Even now, you don't panic easily, but you also don't fully rest. It's like a part of you is always quietly on duty, watching, managing, holding things together. You've always been able to sense when something has shifted before anyone says a word. You know when someone's mood has changed, when tension is building, when you need to become smaller or more helpful or invisible. It's not something you think about anymore, it's just automatic. A skill you developed so young you don't remember learning it. People describe you as responsible, calm, dependable. You handle situations other people avoid. You think ahead. You anticipate needs. You notice what might go wrong before it does. Teachers said you were mature. Family members said you were wise beyond your years. Friends came to you with their problems because you always knew what to say, always had the right words to make things feel more bearable. But what people don't see is how natural this feels to you, almost like breathing. You don't remember choosing it, you just remember being the one who didn't make things harder, the one who comforted the adults when they were struggling, who mediated between your parents, or took care of younger siblings, or learned to manage your own fear without bothering anyone. You became fluent in a language most children never have to speak, the language of emotional management, of quiet competence, of making yourself small enough to fit around everyone else's needs. You learned that being needed felt close enough to being loved, that being useful meant you mattered, that if you could just anticipate what people required, you'd never have to worry about being too much. Now, as an adult, you're still doing it. You still manage everyone's emotions before your own. You still minimize what you're going through because it feels selfish to take up space. You say, "I'm fine," so convincingly that people believe you every single time. And when someone asks how you really are, truly asks, you freeze because you genuinely don't know how to answer. The question feels almost foreign, like it's meant for someone else. You may struggle to ask for help, even when you're exhausted in ways that sleep can't touch. Not because you don't want support, but because it feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, almost like you're breaking an unspoken rule. You're used to being the one who adjusts, who accommodates, who figures it out on your own. The one who doesn't need things explained twice, or emotions soothed, or reassurance given. Sometimes you feel older than the people around you. Not wiser in a glamorous way, just tired in a quiet, unspoken way. Like you skipped a stage where someone else was supposed to take care of things for you, where you were allowed to be uncertain or scared or messy without it being a problem. You might feel closest to people when they need you, and strangely distant when they don't. Connection feels safer when you're useful, when you have a role to play. When people are simply being with you, not needing anything from you, you don't quite know what to do with yourself. It's uncomfortable in a way you can't fully explain. And even when life is relatively calm, there's a subtle tension inside you. A sense that if you let go too much, if you stop watching and managing and staying one step ahead, something important might fall apart. So you never fully relax. You never fully let your guard down. When you're young, your nervous system is designed to attach to the people who take care of you. It learns what's safe by watching what gets rewarded and what gets ignored. Not always with words, but with attention, with presence, with the way people respond when you express a need or show vulnerability. For many people who grew up having to be mature too soon, the message they absorbed wasn't always loud or cruel. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it lived in the spaces between things, in what wasn't said, in what wasn't offered, in the emotional temperature of the household. Sometimes there wasn't enough emotional room for your needs. The adults around you were overwhelmed or absent or struggling with their own pain. Maybe money was tight. Maybe someone was sick. Maybe there was grief that no one talked about but everyone carried. Maybe there was instability, arguments, unpredictability, tension that made the air feel heavy. And you noticed. Children always notice. You sensed when emotions were too heavy to add your own. You learned that being easy, helpful, or mature kept things more stable, that your composure somehow made everything feel a little less fragile. So you became useful. You became easy. You learned to manage yourself because no one else had the capacity to do it for you. You started thinking like a caretaker before your brain was ready for it. You began interpreting other people's emotions as your responsibility to fix or absorb or carefully navigate around. Over time, you developed what some describe as a precocious sense of responsibility. You learned to regulate yourself early, to hold feelings quietly inside where they wouldn't inconvenience anyone, to solve problems internally before they became external, to anticipate what people needed before they had to ask. This kind of maturity often isn't praised openly, it's simply relied on, depended on. And when a child realizes they're relied on, they adapt. Not because they want responsibility, but because responsibility feels like security, like control, like a way to keep the world from becoming even more unpredictable. This wasn't a choice you made consciously, it was an adaptation. Your brain was trying to keep you safe in the only way it knew how, by making you indispensable, by making you good, by making you the kind of child who didn't add to the chaos. But here's the part that often doesn't get talked about. When a child has to become emotionally self-sufficient too early, they don't just learn independence, they learn that their feelings are a burden, that being vulnerable is dangerous, that needing someone is the same as being too much, too difficult, too complicated. They learn that love is something you earn by being low maintenance, that connection is something you secure by being helpful, that worthiness is tied directly to how little trouble you cause. And those beliefs don't disappear when you grow up. They don't fade just because you're now an adult who logically understands that feelings are normal and needs are valid. They become the lens through which you see every relationship, every conflict, every moment of discomfort. You keep performing the role you learned, competent, composed, emotionally self-sufficient, even when no one's asking you to anymore, even when it's exhausting you. The cost of being that child, the one who had to grow up too fast, who had to be the steady one, isn't always visible from the outside. You still function, you still show up, you might even be successful by most measures. Your life might look perfectly fine to anyone watching. But inside, there's a heaviness that's hard to name. A kind of emotional exhaustion that goes deeper than any single stressful event. You feel like you're always working, even when you're not technically doing anything. Even rest doesn't feel restful, because part of you is still scanning the environment for what needs to be managed, who needs to be taken care of, what crisis might be quietly building beneath the surface. You can't fully relax, because relaxing feels like abandoning a post you've been assigned to guard your entire life. You struggle with asking for help, even when you desperately need it. It feels wrong in your body, like you're admitting failure or imposing on someone or revealing that you're not as capable as everyone thinks you are. So you carry things alone, long past the point where it makes sense. And when people do offer support, you instinctively minimize what you're going through so they won't worry, so they won't see you as weak, so they won't have to carry anything on your behalf. There's also a strange loneliness that comes with this, a quiet, persistent loneliness in always being the steady one. Because people check in on those who fall apart, not on those who hold everything together. People ask if you're okay when you're visibly struggling, not when you've learned to hide it so well that no one can tell. You can be surrounded by people and still feel profoundly unseen, because the version of you they know is the one who has it together. The messy, uncertain, frightened parts of you never make it to the surface. They stay hidden, locked away, because you learned a long time ago that those parts aren't safe to show. And over time, you start to wonder if anyone actually knows you, or if they just know the role you've been playing your whole life, the capable one, the strong one, the one who doesn't need things. Relationships can feel complicated in ways that are hard to articulate. You're drawn to people who need you because that dynamic is familiar. It feels natural. You know exactly who you are when someone needs something from you. But with people who are stable and available and emotionally healthy, you don't know what to do. It feels uncomfortable to be cared for without having to earn it. Vulnerability feels risky, like exposing something you were supposed to keep protected. It feels destabilizing to not be the one holding everything together. Sometimes you feel disconnected from your own needs, not because you don't have them, but because you learned to set them aside so early, so automatically, that they became harder to hear. It's like they're speaking a language you used to know but have slowly forgotten. And then there's the numbness. After years of pushing your feelings down to make space for everyone else's, you might notice that you don't feel much of anything anymore. Not sadness, not anger, not even joy. Just a flatness, a sense of going through the motions. You're not depressed in the way people talk about it, you're just not fully present, not fully here. You may feel numb at times or strangely empty after handling something intense, as if your system knows how to function, how to perform, how to manage, but not how to actually receive care, not how to let someone else hold something for you. Some people describe it as feeling like they're watching their own life from a distance, like they're performing the part of a person who's okay, but there's no one actually home, just the role, just the script you've been following for as long as you can remember. And beneath all of this, there can be grief. Not loud, dramatic grief, but the quiet kind, the kind that lives in your chest and surfaces at unexpected moments. Grief for the softness you never got to have, for the reassurance that was never offered, for the permission to just be a child that didn't always exist, for the version of yourself who never got to be uncertain, or scared, or needy, or held without having to earn it first. If any of this feels familiar, I want you to know something. You're not broken, you're not damaged, and you're not overreacting to something that wasn't that bad. What you developed wasn't coldness. It wasn't emotional distance or a lack of feeling. It was intelligence. It was awareness. It was an ability to sense emotional complexity before you had words for it, before you were supposed to understand it. What you're experiencing now is the echo of something that happened a long time ago, something that required you to be stronger and more self-reliant than any child should have to be. You survived it by becoming who you needed to be in that moment. And that took an incredible amount of emotional intelligence, adaptability, and strength. The ability to sense what people need, to stay calm under pressure, to manage complexity without falling apart, those aren't small things. They're skills that many adults never develop. You developed them as a child because your environment required it. Many people who had to be mature too soon didn't lose their sensitivity, they refined it. They learned to channel it inward, to manage it privately, to use it in service of others. Your steadiness isn't a flaw. Your self-control isn't a failure. It's a skill that once protected you and the people you loved. But survival skills aren't the same as thriving skills. What kept you safe back then, the hypervigilance, the self-sufficiency, the emotional suppression, might be the very thing that's keeping you isolated now. And it makes sense that loosening your grip on those patterns feels unfamiliar, even frightening. You spent years perfecting this way of being. It worked. It kept you safe. You were never supposed to carry all of that alone. You were never supposed to be that strong that early. And the fact that you did, the fact that you managed it, doesn't mean you have to keep doing it now. There is nothing broken about you for feeling tired, nothing wrong with you for wanting rest that goes deeper than sleep. You don't owe anyone your composure. You don't owe anyone your emotional self-sufficiency. You're allowed to be unsure. You're allowed to not have the answer. You're allowed to take up space without justifying it, without making yourself useful first. The child you were did what they had to do, but the adult you are now gets to choose something different. You've spent so much of your life making sure everyone else was okay, and maybe no one ever stopped to ask if you were. So I'm asking now. Not because you need to fix anything or figure anything out right away or have some profound realization, just because it matters. You matter. Not because of what you do or how well you hold things together or how little trouble you cause, just because you're here. If any of this feels familiar, know that you're not alone in it. Many people carry this quiet strength and its quiet weight without ever naming it, without ever being seen for what it cost them. You're allowed to move through the world without always holding it together. You're allowed to notice what you feel, even if you don't change anything yet, even if you just sit with it. If you've been carrying this for a long time, it's okay to set it down, even just for a moment, even just to see what it feels like to not be the strong one. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be tougher. You were never broken to begin with. Sometimes simply being seen is enough to soften what's been held for too long. You don't have to be strong right now. You never did.